All right, time sure is flying because next week, Tszyu returns against Bakhram and Murtazaliev. Yes, that is next weekend. Today is October, geez, I forgot the date. October the 9th, 2024. I'm TstreeT Controversy with Fight View 360 with my colleague Big J on the line. And Tszyu's last fight was against Sebastian Fundora. For those who don't know, there was a nasty cut on the top of Tszyu's head, one of the worst cuts, I guess, arguably you can see in boxing, to where Tszyu was losing ounces of blood throughout the fight, all in his eyes, all on his face. And if you watch the fight, it clearly affected his performance. However, despite the fact, some would argue that he won the fight regardless, and also that despite the adversity, well, he's shown that he can battle through adversity, or as we call it over here in the States, he got the dog in him. And another thing to give Sebastian Fundora his credit, he actually for once fought tall and disciplined and was pretty much doing his best to control the fight with the jab. But that's neither here or there. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Next week, Tszyu is going to be getting another shot at being a two-time, he's going to be getting a shot at being a two-time champion, fighting Bakhram Murtazaliev for the IBF title at 154 pounds. Bakhram Murtazaliev for years were fighting on dark matches, that mean untelevised fights on Charlo undercards, going back to when he became mandatory against Jorge Forte. Forte. That was back in 2019. And as you can see, he fought a Manny Woods, Kerry Gray, Ahmed Chenko, Roberto Venezuela, and all these fights. If you can look at them, MGM Grand, Mohegan Sun, San Antonio, Minneapolis. They were on undercards of other fighters where you would think that, well, if he's a mandatory, he would kind of get some exposure because they want to build him up to possibly fight Jermell Charlo one day. So when I saw that they were burying him in dark matches, untelevised matches, and the numerous amount of step-aside money he was getting. And when you get step-aside money, basically you get two paydays. You get money to not force your mandatories. Like basically, they'll come to Murtazaliev and say, all right, listen, we'll give you $200,000 and we'll get you a fight on the card for another $200,000. But Charlo's not interested in the fight right now, but think about it. And they did that for a series of fights. And then finally, and basically what that meant to me is Charlo never had any intentions on fighting him because PBC wasn't promoting him to be a potential opponent in the future. So he went on to get his title shot for the vacant title against Jack Houquet and beat Jack Houquet by knockout. I was very critical of Murtazaliev at that time, and the reason is because we haven't really seen much of him. And from what I've known from him, for the fights that I've seen from him in the past, by the way, he's a main event Kathy Duva fighter, not main event Australia, the broadcaster. He's a main event Kathy Duva fighter, promoter of the now retired Sergey Kovalev. I forgot who else she had, but off the top of my head. So I never really rated him that good, but however, I was hard on him, and then I forgot it was Ramadan. He was training, and if you know, they have to eat before sun up and can't eat until sundown. So imagine you're going through a training camp, cutting weight and going through that, but he's whatever athlete, but I'm just saying I had to take that into consideration in hindsight. So October the 29th, I'm expecting for Tszyu to beat him up. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He's 22-0 with 16 KOs, 31 years old, the Russian. I just don't see anything that Tszyu can't get past. Even though he's undefeated, I think that Tszyu will be able to stop him, possibly bulldozing. But Tszyu is also coming off of another layoff, not too significant, but basically he's been off since the end of March. Big J, your thoughts on the fight?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great fight. And from all reports, Tim had a media workout yesterday, and from what I've been hearing, Tim looks absolutely phenomenal. He looks in the best shape ever.
Yeah, it's playing. I have it playing in the background.
So I'm still going to maintain that Tim might take 9-10 rounds to get the job done, but I have no doubt that he will get it done. All right, because I think Tim only really has one knockout over an actual established 154, and that was Carlos Ocampo, and he was a low-level fighter.
Well, remember, he stopped Tony Harrison. He broke him down.
Yeah, Tony Harrison was over the hill, and he hasn't fought since. So I think the same thing that Tim did to Harrison, he'll do to Murtazaliev. He'll break him down. He'll take him 9-10 rounds, and he'll get him out of there. So I don't see a quick destruction. I see a long clinical breakdown similar to what he did to Tony Harrison. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and also, I'm guessing, to try to put on the show as well, work off some rust and try to sell himself for the bigger fights. See, the problem I have with Murtazaliev is I can't really define him. He's not, how can I say this? He's not a technical fighter. He's in between the technical, and he's just a fighter. He's in between a technical fighter and a pressure fighter. And also, when I really think about it, he went life and death with Jack Bouquet. I can't.
Yep.
As I was saying, the reason why I can't give Murtazaliev too much of a chance is because he went life and death with Jack Bouquet, and also the level of competition. For example, when you look at his resume, as I have here on the screen, is there any names that you really know of? I mean, I've seen a lot of these guys fight before, but when the best win on your resume and you went life and death with him is Jack Bouquet, it's just like, I can't give you too much a chance. But listen, every fighter has that special night. You know how they say when you're in a big fight, the good fighters, they improve 30% or something like that. And that 30% is what gets them, makes them, I guess, up to the game. And then when you win a championship, you're supposed to become 30% better. I forgot how the saying goes. But anyway, the plan is supposed to be, if Tszyu wins, he's supposed to go on to fight Erickson Lubin. And from my understanding, Erickson Lubin would play two parts. It'd be, for one, PBC giving Erickson Lubin a fight he's been always wanting. And also, Erickson Lubin is going to be, from my understanding, the next IBF mandatory. So therefore, it would eliminate, basically, Tszyu would have some time to play around with that IBF title before ordering a mandatory again, maybe up to a year after the Lubin fight, or 16 months, depending. So then he's supposed to get a rematch with Fundora, but there's been some new developments where Sebastian Fundora and Terence Crawford are actually in negotiations to fight, and it'll possibly be in February in Saudi Arabia. Now, from what I gather from it, Fundora wanted the fight. He even said at the post-fight press conference after Tszyu, he wanted the fight, but his management was steering away from the fight. But now I think the pot is too big for Fundora and his team to turn it down, especially with PBC being short on dates, and also PBC fighters now being lent out to Saudi cards. So, and Terence Crawford needs an opponent. So right now it's October the 9th, and on September the 30th, the WBO released a statement on their website. Here, I have it here on the screen if you want to pause it and read it, where they gave them a 10-day extension, and let me read it. On September 30th, 2024, the WBO acknowledged receipt of an email communication by attorney Mr. Harrison Whitman on behalf of Terence Crawford, requesting a 10-day extension of the negotiation period to continue discussions toward an agreement as ordered. On the same day, Sebastian Fundora's promoter, Mr. Samson Lukovic, rectified the aforesaid petition via email agreeing to the extension. So listen to what they're saying. That's Crawford who reached out to the WBO, basically saying, we got something going on. Can we get an extension? So it would be different if it was Fundora's team that reached out, because they're the champion. So the fact that the challenger reached out, basically saying we're working on something, that gives me hope that this fight is going to probably 80% happen. So when we're looking at the rankings right here, by the way, before we look at the rankings, what do you think about that, Big J? Do you feel confident that Crawford Fundora is going to happen?
Nah, I'll believe it when both boys are in the ring. More
than 6 months ago. Like, have your feelings changed a bit?
Nah, I believe if one thing boxing has taught me, and well, life in general has taught me, nothing happens until it happens. I don't believe that fight will happen unless both boys are in the ring with their gear on, with a referee, and the bell goes ding. That's when the fight happens and not a moment before. Because, as we all know, thank you, Mixer Rafa, fights can be pulled at any time.
Yeah.
So, I'll believe it when I see it.
Here's the other question. Do you whether they step into the ring or not, do you feel the fight is closer to being made?
No, I think
it was 6 months ago. You can't. Then it was 6 months ago.
It's all bullshit. I'm not buying any of this. I mean, Crawford with the WBO, Crawford can do whatever the hell he wants. He's been a WBO champion for over a decade, so he can just do whatever the hell he wants. All right? Because he knows if they don't come to an agreement, they'll just strip his ass and promote him.
Yeah.
So do I think the fight's any closer?
It could possibly be a ploy, to drag it out, and then negotiations don't work out, then it goes to a purse bid, and, Samson knows that the Saudis will win the purse bid, and they just make him he gets stripped or be forced to vacate.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter because the Saudis want it to happen anyway, so everyone should just take the big paycheck while it's there and get it going.
Take that money, and that's why I don't understand why fighters are turning down that Saudi money. Take it while it's there.
Is it more plausible than what it was 6 months ago? Yeah, maybe, but as I said, I'm really not interested in the fight until I see both boys in the ring. Bell goes ding. That's when the fight happens. So, because all this other hoo-ha and, fights get pulled for all sorts of reasons. So, until they're in the ring,
Yeah.
Until they're in the ring, the bell goes ding. I don't really think it's going to happen.
Well, how that plays into Tszyu is that in a perfect world for Team Tszyu and his team, they will go on to dismantle and capture the belt of Bakhram Murtazaliev, become the IBF champion. Then they would dispatch future mandatory. Now, look at the rankings of the IBF. Now, when you're ranked number 1 by the IBF, this is the only sanctioning body that does this. When you're ranked number 1 by the WBC, by the WBA, by the WBO, doesn't necessarily mean you're the number 1 contender. But with the IBF, if you are ranked number 1, you are the number 1 contender. And that's why sometimes when you look at the rankings, for example, let me scroll down here, you'll see right here at 147, Karen Chukhadzadian, I forgot to pronounce his name, the IBF mandatory for Boots Ennis. That fight's going to be happening. I'm going to be at that in November. If you see, he's the number 1 contender. And what do you see? Number 2 says not ranked. So when you see a number 1 and a number 2 ranked by the IBF, those two have to fight to be number 1. And whoever's ranked number 1 is the mandatory. This is the only sanctioning body that works like that. So to go back up to 154, if you look, number 1 is empty, number 2 is empty, Erickson Lubin number 3, Tszyu number 4, Josh Kelly number 5, Jesus Ramos number 6. Now, Erickson Lubin will likely fight Josh Kelly. Possibly it could happen, or if not, basically he could be made IBF mandatory without fighting anybody, but highly unlikely. But basically, in a perfect world, to get not too long-winded, Tszyu would beat Bakhram Murtazaliev, become the IBF champion, get rid of possible future mandatory Erickson Lubin out of the way, and then go on maybe late summer next year, fight the winner of Terence Crawford, Sebastian Fundora. And that would be for Undisputed. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
That sounds like the way to go.
I think I hope that's what happens, but I have a feeling that won't happen because for some reason, I don't see, and I hope I'm wrong, this Fundora Crawford fight happening. I think for some reason, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, Spence is out of the picture. It's already, Spence is pretty much, he's got, basically 9 toes in retirement already. And
thank God for that.
The wild card is Jermell Charlo is heavily rumored to be back in camp, and he is the champion in recess, and he can come back and upset everything.
I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking Virgil Ortiz somehow. is going to throw a spanner in the works.
I don't think so, because now Virgil Ortiz, it's heavily rumored. Well, let me say it this way. Golden Boy and the Saudis are now in cahoots. Golden Boy is having a Latino card in Saudi Arabia. Like that should tell you everything right there. So Virgil Ortiz is under the thumb of the Saudis. They're not going to let him interfere.
No, fair enough then.
I think it would be Charlo.
I want to see Tszyu versus Crawford no later than this time next year. Because Crawford will be 38 Crawford will be 38 by the time that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as I said, and if Tszyu gets Crawford when he's 38, everyone will just say, oh, well, he beat him because he was too old.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't in his prime. So, I mean, you know, it'll be a massive win, but we'll see what happens.
And
but
if I'm correct, Crawford's going to be 38 next year? I think he just turned 36 in the check.
No, he just turned 37, didn't he?
Yeah, he just turned 37. Yeah, September 28th, so he's going to be 38.
He'll be 38 by this time next year. So, yeah, and that's it. And don't forget the throw the spanner in the works. He still wants the Canelo fight. Lord knows why. Why the hell does he want to put his legacy on the line and get the absolute piss kicked out of him by Canelo? Because I've said it before, Canelo will murder him. Why? It's not a legacy fight. It's a dumb fight. It's so bloody stupid. It's the year 10 kid thinking he can take on the bloody year 12 kid who's twice his fucking size. And they're like, you're an idiot. There's a fine line between stupidity and bravery, and Terence Crawford's on it if he wants to take on Canelo. So, it's not brave. It's fucking stupid.
Well, right now, we don't know. Canelo, is running out of opponents unless he fights Murtazaliev versus...
Bullshit. Canelo's not running out of opponents. He's just running out of opponents he wants to pick.
Well, yeah, true.
Canelo has... How many mandatories does he have right now? 4?
Yeah, and he won't fight him.
Yeah,
well, he beat Belanga. That was the WBA. And Canelo had 3 mandatories.
He ain't running out of opponents. He's just running out of opponents he wants to pick personally.
Yeah.
So, that's bullshit.
Caleb Plant is his new WBA mandatory. Kristen Mbali is the WBC. And Diego Pacheco, one of Mbali's the WBO or the WBC, but basically, yes, he's got mandatories piling up.
Yeah, and, I heard somewhere that he was looking at fighting, what's the old mate that he ducked for all those years? What's his name? Benavidez? Is that him?
Benavidez is just signed to fight David Morrell. That news came out yesterday. So that's going to be happening. Yeah. We don't know if that's going to be on the Tank Davis undercard in December, or if that's going to be its own card possibly in January or February.
That's at 175, yeah?
Yeah, 175. They both abandoned the 168-pound division basically because they knew they weren't going to get the Canelo fight. Benavidez with the WBC mandatory, and Morrell was the WBA mandatory for Canelo. And, Canelo didn't pick him. He fought Edgar Berlanga, so they both moved up.
Yep, don't blame him. So.
Well, we pretty much touched on everything outside of the fact that maybe we have to hope and pray that everything goes well down as well as it can go, unfortunately, down in Florida. Because this fight could possibly be moved or postponed depending on what damage Hurricane Milton causes, which, as you can see here on the map, this fight is taking place down in Orlando. But as you can see, the storm is originating down near Mexico, and right now has been between a Category 5 and, the unheard of 6, and it's getting weaker. It would get weaker as it gets inland. And remember, it's only October the 9th right now. The fight is in 10 days. However, the cleanup, travel, all that it could be impacted, likely will be impacted in some way by the storm. So it's best for us to watch this space and pay attention to social media because this fight could possibly be moved. Your thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, well, I've heard that No Limit might have a contingency plan. I don't know how true this is, but you think that if the storm does cause too much damage or there's power outages. I mean, I've survived through how many cyclones, which is the Australian equivalent to a hurricane, at least 6 or 7 in my lifetime. and the cleanup can take weeks, if not months. Especially if there's any floods. I mean, shit getting blown over, that can get cleared up pretty quick. But flood waters pretty much can take a long time to clean up. And I'd say, I think No Limit, I heard somewhere saying that they will have it in November if the fight needs to be moved because of the weather.
I'm starting to think that could be possible because remember, North Carolina just had all that devastation in that area. So basically that whole southeastern region of the states have been in significant trouble. So don't be surprised if we get a postponement by Sunday, or by Sunday, Monday, depending on what the damage is.
It's very, very late in the bloody cyclone season too. I can't believe you guys are still having problems in October. That's mid-autumn for you guys.
No, no, this is the end for us. This is the end of our hurricane season.
Yeah, well,
this is literally, as you would say, this is the ass end. This is this is the end.
I was gonna say because the ass end for us is April. I'm like, yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah, for us it's October, like the very first week. This is really late for us.
But hopefully all goes well. By the time the hurricane hits, it's just a bit of piss and wind. Nothing happens, and the fight happens without.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to mention the undercard. As we expected, the undercard wasn't going to be that well. Wasn't going to be that well stacked because here in the States, this is going to be on Amazon Prime, free Amazon Prime. So if you have a Prime membership, by the way, it's Prime Day right now. If you have a Prime membership, then you get to watch this fight for free through Prime Sports. The undercard. That would be. What'd you say?
I haven't. That would be interesting for Australia. Anyone who has a Prime membership in Australia, because they're going to get that for free. Because in this country, on Main Event, you're paying $70. So that would be interesting. Because I think I've got Prime at home.
It's going to be geo-blocked because what happens is Inoue, for example, he fights on Prime Video over in Japan, but we don't get those fights free over here. So it depends on the area. But just like I did with Channel 7. What fight was that when I watched Channel 7?
Winwood.
Yeah, Winwood. All I did was have to, use my VPN, and I was able to watch the fight. The same thing I did with the Stand fight with
Sonny Bill and Mark Hunt.
Sonny Bill and Mark Hunt. So it depends. You might be able to get it for free if you use a VPN and log in to your Amazon Prime account from the States. But here's the undercard. Bakhram, Murtazaliev, Tszyu, of course. Yunius Tellez versus Johan Gonzalez. Yunius Tellez, he's ranked by the WBA. He's one of those fast track Cubans. I never understood why they love the fast track Cubans. He's 8-0, but basically he's in the WBA rankings and he's moving up. So he's the co-feature. Caesar Tapia versus Endry. As you can see, we don't know these people, ladies and gentlemen.
I do. I know those two blokes.
You do?
Caesar Tapia is a Mexican-born Australian fighter.
Okay. Main Event. I got you. They sprinkled in some of their fighters. Okay.
Yeah, and the other bloke, whose name I can't remember, he's the bloke that knocked out Isaac Harbin earlier in the year. So he's the bloke that put Isaac Harbin into possible.
Hold on, let me see.
He's a Venezuelan fighter.
Endry. Saverdra. We'll figure it out. Oh, I see. Yeah. I see. Okay, all right, I got you. All right, you know what? All right, there's a little something there. There's a little spark in the undercard.
Yeah, so those two blokes are middleweight contenders for Australia. Well, obviously they brought in the Venezuelan bloke because he knocked out Isaac Harbin, and I think it was on the Sam Goodman, Mark Sleeves undercard early in the year, or it was some card earlier in the year, and this Venezuelan bloke was just supposed to be
Sleeves.
Yeah. It was supposed to be a good, catted fodder fight for Harbin, and Harbin got his ass knocked out. So, that's why he's fighting with Tapia. He's a contender at the middleweight division. Mexican-born bloke, lives in Australia. Trying to get, and isn't there another fight? Is there three? Is there three undercard fights? What was that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 fights. Basically, you have a Nigerian fighter, Mexican fighter, and you get to TBA. Nothing, basically, prospect fights.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we will be here next week covering the fight if it does happen, of course. And also, Australian boxing is starting to pick up, so you can expect a long form podcast from us coming soon, sometime in the next few days or so. And with that being said, down below in the description box, you can follow me on Twitter at TstreeT Controversy and Big J at Old Mate Big J. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and please subscribe.